This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Love and War, bonus episode 4, part 2. When we left off, Stephanie had dealt with Pastor Kim. She told that heifer that Dallas was no longer a safe place for her to visit. Golly! And Maribel discovered that was not Donovan, who'd gotten her off at the spa after her massage. It was Jeffrey. And apparently, that wasn't the first time he did that. And she did not recall. And on the flight to Miami, Donovan has clued Uncle Manny in, Maribel's daddy. And both men are now homicidal. Thank God in heaven and all the angels in the firmament that neither man knows exactly why Maribel hung up on Donovan. But when she did, Donovan told Uncle Manny, I think that she may have misunderstood my impromptu visit to Rennie, but I'll explain it to her tomorrow. Manny said, maybe it's a good thing that you didn't tell her about your experience with Portia. That's probably not something you want to communicate on the phone. Let's focus our attention on finding her. And Nigel's going to help us do that. A few hours later, Nigel was doing just that. He was at the Thomases, trying to find out from them what they know about Jeff and Darlene Portia Capital's relationship, and trying to find out if they know where Jeff is. He left Dallas without telling anybody where he was going. And when Nigel checked with the Capitals, they said they hadn't heard from or seen their daughter Darlene in over a decade. So she was absolutely not on her way to visit them when she left Dallas. When the Thomases admitted to Nigel that Jeff and Portia used to get into all kind of mayhem together as children, Nigel was shocked. He'd kept in touch with them regularly. They were supposed to keep him informed about everything that was going on in Jeff's life. And they never even mentioned that Jeff was in therapy or that he'd had to be medicated himself a time or two. Mrs. Thomas said, it was literally his personal information, and it wasn't ours to share. We told him to talk to you about it. And since he always did so well in school and didn't get in any trouble when he was properly medicated and in treatment, we didn't see any need to discuss it with you. Plus, Darlene's bad influence on Jeff ended when the Capitals sent her to treatment when they were in the 10th or 11th grade. By the time she came back, she was a year behind him and he was off to college. We had no idea that they even reconnected. The Thomases had no clue that Darlene had gone to the same college as Jeff. And according to the Capitals, Darlene had a breakdown in college, attacked her roommate, was expelled, and hospitalized. She spent the next 20 years in and out of jail and treatment. And while they wouldn't share exactly what prompted them to sever their relationship with Darlene, it was clear that it had to be something terrible, because they had no clue that she was in a treatment facility in Dallas for 2 years and only got out 2 months before. Nigel told both the Thomases and the Capitals to let him know if either of their children showed up, and they both agreed. When Salima, Wise, True, and Woody arrived in Dallas, Stephanie was at the estate, and she had a story to tell her homegirls. But the storytelling had to wait until they got on that private flight to Miami. In Salima's apartment, her and Wise are having a few choice words with one another. Salima said, "Ain't that much work in the world. I don't see why you can't just come with me to Miami. I'm going to be back in a matter of days. Both of your bosses are still in Vegas with their wives. You did an excellent job helping my daddy and Big Wood plan their engagement surprises. You can take some days off." I said, "Big gangster, you working. I'm working. Don't handle me like a housewife tagging along with her husband on his business trips. Either we putting in work together or we not. And if we not, I'm going to make this paper. Now quit fussing and let me get some of that before you go." In True's apartment, she's packing and getting an update from Lorenzo. Lorenzo was able to locate the itineraries for both Darlene, Portia Capital, and Jeff. While they traveled separately, they both flew into Miami International. When Portia arrived, she picked up a rental car from Hertz. And the CCTV picked her up at multiple locations in Miami, including the airport hours later. She was seen on airport security footage picking up Jeff. And then the ALPR, automated license plate reader system, hit on the tag several times on Interstate 85 before the car exited the highway and entered a business route, making the vehicle virtually untraceable. True asked, what about his cell phone? Were you ever able to get a track on it? Lorenzo said, well, I know where it's located, but I can't get in it. True said, well, where is it? Lorenzo said, at the estate, with you. I had a suspicion, so I had the Queen Mother call him on that number, and he answered. She gave me access to her phone, and I was able to detect that he'd had the calls routed from his regular cell phone to a throwaway. True said, people don't do that when they not up to no good. We already know that he's smart and he's good with technology, but we've got to figure out what him and that damn Porsche are up to. But right now, we need to focus on why is it surprise. As important as figuring all of this out is, Maribel can't get any safer than she is right now on that estate, or than she'll be when she gets on your father's plane, or than she'll be when she gets to Miami with everybody else. Lorenzo said, you're right about that. It'll hold, and I'm going to keep working on it. Not to mention, tomorrow will be the perfect time for all the players to sit down together and hash things out. True said, ooh, I get to call my first meeting. Big Wood just laughed because he was ear hustling on her conversation. Lorenzo said, I see you, boss lady, engaged and calling the shots. When True hung up the phone, Big Wood said, you ready to go? True said, yeah, I'm ready. Big Wood said, now don't forget, you need to be out front, because you need to make sure that damn girl don't shoot nobody. In Stephanie's apartment, she's all done packing and she's ready to go. She's disappointed that she won't be able to take Corey for another ride before she heads to Miami, but she's ecstatic that he's agreed to share a room with her after Wise's big surprise. While she was putting the final touches on her packing, she got a call from him saying, Steph, I'm not going to be able to come by the estate. I need to do Melissa a favor real quick. And Stephanie said, oh, okay. Well, that's not going to delay your arrival to Miami, is it? Corey said, nah, I'm going to be in place, but you travel safe. I love you. Stephanie said, I love you too. As Corey hung up the phone, he pulled up to the guard gate at Maribel's estate. The guard asked if Maribel was expecting him, and when he said no, the guard said that he couldn't give him access. Corey told him who he was and asked him if he would please ask Maribel if he could speak to her real quick. 5 minutes later, Corey was pulling onto the property, and inside, Maribel looked like hell. Corey said, talk to me, Maribel. What's going on? Maribel said, I'm not at a place where I can even discuss it, Corey. How can I help you? What do you need? Corey said, I'm here because Melissa said that I needed to come and see you. And she said that it couldn't wait until we all got back from Miami. That I needed to talk to you now while we could have some privacy. And it's clear that she was right again. Hearing that, Maribel dissolved. Corey had literally never seen that woman drop a tear. She wasn't thugged out like Stephanie, but she was always poised and in control. She was always the voice of reason and the perfect example of emotional, mental, and spiritual stability. Despite not having any children of her own, she'd become the go-to auntie for all of the children. They loved Maribel down bad. And Maribel didn't miss a birthday, a moving up ceremony at school, a AB honor roll celebration, a spirit week, a storybook costume day, a career day. Every juvenile boy in the family had a crush on their Aunt Maribel. And all of the little girls wanted to be just like her when they grew up. She was fab, fine, fierce, smart, and sweet as pie. And Corey suspected that Maribel had a little gangster in her too. She was also very rational, understanding, and dependable. And that's why everybody thought she was perfect for Donovan. Donovan had fallen for a grown woman. And here was the love of his life, in pieces. And Corey was concerned. He said, Maribel, did something happen? You gotta talk to me. If you don't tell me something, I'm calling D. Because Maribel said, no, you cannot tell Donovan, please. I need to talk to somebody. And I know that I can talk to you, but I need you to be in your official capacity as pastor and not as Donovan's friend. Pastor Corey said, I got you. I'm a professional. I can do that. As long as you know that if there is a threat to the life, safety, or well-being of another individual, confidentiality goes out of the window. Maribel said, right. No different than in medicine. But you and I have a rapport. And I can't have you getting so upset about what I'm about to disclose to you that you repeat anything that I'm going to tell you and it results in a threat to the life, safety, and well-being of somebody else. Corey said, I got you, Maribel. Talk to me. And then Maribel told him what Jeff had done to her and what she suspected he'd done before. Trigger warning. While this is very much so a fictitious story, this is real life for somebody. The behaviors depicted here and the underlying emotions are intense, and by no way do I have any intentions of being cavalier. She said, there are medications that an anesthesiologist would have at their disposal. Medications that are useful when a surgeon is working on a patient who they need to feel nothing but be able to be alert, to be in complete control of their faculties. Those medicines are often used during brain surgery. And the surgeon needs the patient to be able to communicate and respond to commands. Move your left hand, sing a song, stuff like that. That way they know that they're stimulating the correct area of the brain and that they haven't done any unnecessary damage. The great thing about those medicines is that the patient has no memory after surgery. You can imagine that seeing a saw in the hands of your surgeon and hearing while he cuts open your skull could very much so be traumatizing. So it's great that patients have no memory of it. The only problem is that medication in the wrong hands can be used to do downright diabolical things. And I think that on several occasions, prior to my trip to the spa, Jeff used one of those medications on me without my consent. And I have no clue what I said or did, or what he said or did to me. It took everything in Corey not to lose his religion and his mind. He retired from the feds. He was in the Special Victims Unit. If you recall, he was an undercover agent, and he investigated cases that involved members of clergy who were abusing their authority and misusing their power, taking advantage of women and children. So this was right up his alley. And his first thought was to call the feds. His second was to get Maribel to tell Donovan. And his third was to drop Dom and tell Manny. But then he remembered that he just promised Maribel confidentiality. So he said, what are you thinking? How are you feeling right now? When Maribel told him that she felt dirty, she felt violated, because she was violated, that she was angry, depressed, traumatized, and could not help but to think that the chances of her and Donovan getting back together were now slim to none. Because the only way she could avoid telling him this is if she stayed the hell away from him. She couldn't get back together with him and keep this secret. And she did not believe that she would be able to convince him that she had no clue what Jeff had done to her in the past, or that she didn't know it was Jeff at the spa. She was kicking her own self for not removing the eye mask. And as an OBGYN, she told countless women that there wasn't anything that they'd done to deserve being taken advantage of. That it wasn't their fault, that it was all on their abuser, and that blaming themselves just gave the abuser more power over them. But in this moment, she couldn't convince herself of any of that. All it would have taken was for her to just take off the eye mask. And then she couldn't believe that she trusted and entertained a sick, sadistic bastard like Jeff. Corey said, Maribel, what would you tell a woman in your current position? Maribel said, I know all of that, Corey. Corey asked, and what would you advise one of the women in your life to do? Maribel said, I'd tell her to call the authorities. I'd refer her to a good therapist and suggest that she disclose to a trusted friend. And I just did the third. Corey said, I'm sure that anything I tell you right now is going to fall flat. But let me remind you that you had no reason to expect that person to be anybody other than Donovan. Did you make yourself perfectly clear to Jeff where you two stood? When Maribel said, yes, I did, Corey said, then this is all on him. Let me know how you want me to support you. But first, let's pray. Meanwhile, on the private, headed to Miami, Stephanie has updated her girls on how she put that thing down on CT and about how she put them paws on Kim. Salima and True were laughing hysterically when Stephanie told them about how she took the vase off Corey's desk and poured the contents all over Kim's wig. When True asked, so what's next? Stephanie said, I don't know. I'm riding the wave. I'm trusting God. True said, uh-oh, let me find out Mom Brenda finally got through to you. Stephanie said, girl, sometimes you hit rock bottom, and the only thing down there with you is God. This whole time, I'd been operating from what I wanted, what I needed, and I had no clue that Corey was still in love with me too. I thought he was done with me, so I was focused on trying to convince him not to be. And I knew for sure he was doing something with Kim. Remember when you bugged her hotel room in Denver? Well, I was in that apartment going through labor pains, and I was still tapped in on that video. And I saw Kim all over my man. And then the battery on my laptop died, and I was in too much pain to get up and plug it in. So I never saw how it turned out. Part of the reason why I left so abruptly from the hospital and went to Puerto Rico is because I thought that while I was in the house in labor, Corey was at the hotel taking Kim down. True said, you thought that all this time? You never asked him about it? Stephanie said no, because I didn't want to hear the answer. You know I'm crazy. If I would have confronted him and he would have admitted to sleeping with her, I would have ended up hurting both of them. Salima said, well, when did you find out that it wasn't true? Last night or this morning? Stephanie said, I knew when they was arguing in that parking lot that she had never had none of my man. Because that heifer said that when she was trying to give him a BJ, he didn't rise to the occasion. And that probably meant he didn't have enough to satisfy her. You don't ever tell another woman about what your man working with. But let's just say, I ain't never have no complaints in that department. True, you know, when we was in our 20s, I had all kinds. True said, yeah, I know. Then Stephanie said, so Salima, you and Wise good? And Salima said, I guess. But when me and Wise was in the bathroom, he asked me about having his babies, and I told him he had to marry me first. And he said, done. So I just knew at some point, either in New York or Vegas, he was going to pop the question. And I needed to stop him from doing that. True said, what you mean? Salima said, I'm happy for you and for my father. But them proposals was whack as hell. A nigga trying to take me down to the altar, he gonna have to come a whole lot better than his mama's dining room table or a restaurant with my family and friends hiding. Stephanie said, well, what kind of proposal you expecting? Salima said, oh, he gonna have to pull out all the stops. Rent out a mansion, a $5 million yacht, invite everybody I ever known in my life. Hire a celebrity singer. Nah, scratch that, because don't nobody sing better than Donovan. He gonna have to have Donovan singing, and he gonna have to profess his undying love in front of the entire universe. And if he's smart, he'll already have the wedding planned, because if he wait on me, it might take another 10 years before we get to the actual wedding. And I'm gonna need 3 rings. I'm gonna need one with the biggest diamond I ever seen in my life that I'm gonna keep in the safe. Then I'm gonna need one that I can wear when I'm not working. And then I'm gonna need something real simple. So that way when I'm putting in work, I ain't got to worry about it getting caught on nothing or catching the eye of an enemy and him getting any bright ideas about coming for my man. True said, so your crazy behind don't even want to plan your own wedding? What about picking bridesmaids and dresses and shoes? And Salima said, if the man is marrying me, then he should know me. So he should be more than capable of picking everything. I shouldn't have to do nothing but show up. Stephanie said, you crazier than I thought. That's stupid.